we'll just continue what we've been talking about. And I think it's kind of funny because if I'm traveling, I would rather not be farther than a hallway away from my producer, motivational listener, Scott Smith, who happens to also be my husband, because of little things like, what did I not plug in? What did I plug in the wrong spot? It's just so much better if I'm either ready to start or he can come in and click something around that I might have found eventually, but probably I would have lost something else. It would have gone, great, now I can hear, but I can't see.
Fair
You
enough.
know?
Yeah, fair enough.
Or you can hear me, but I can't hear you. Did I mute you? You know,
Yeah.
just so it's just better if he comes in, because this is the sort of mental exercise that he can remain calm for. And I just continue to go, oh no, now what? And that's my bane when you do presentations,
Oh, yeah.
and you probably watch several. And sorry to everyone out there that may feel like, oh no, that was me. But it's my personal thing that just makes me go, oh, don't do that, is when someone is about to give information that we've all come to hear, and you hear the muttering, oh, maybe I should click on this. Because that's what I do. Should I do it this way? Should I plug this in somewhere else? Oh, it's not working. So I kind of decided that whenever there's a group situation going on, I probably want like giant flashcards, and then I can just, drop one and hold up the next one, and then drop that one out, hold up the next one, because it's not dependent upon electricity. It doesn't mean that we have to have internet connection that's good and strong and solid. And I'm just like, because I'm not tolerant enough to let them get through the little foibles and to the next part, that I'll push people on the other end who are just going, where's the fantastic graphics? Where's the fade to the next great picture or something? It's like, this is what you've got.
Yeah. No, there's a good argument for using a low tech approach, because like this morning, for instance, since a lot of the things going on with Amazon, like a lot of services are affected worldwide, and part of it is affecting us like right here. So like, what would I not give for a low tech approach at this moment? So, yeah.
Oh my goodness. So poor Amazon, poor world.
Yeah.
The tolerance, but also there's some things that it's like, it's now or never.
Oh, yeah.
I will not have this opportunity in this way. We're not getting on your subjects yet. You are my one and only for today. And this is the beginning of 5 Mondays in a row of Texans only. So I'm hoping you are in Texas right now.
I am. Yeah. No, I am.
Okay, good. Had you say, if you had said, oh, no, that's old information, I don't live there anymore, I would have gone, well, throw that out the window. This will be the last of, but oftentimes I do talk with people in a lot of different regions, time zones.
Yeah.
If you are Malaysia and Australia and you've been on my show, I have not gone live with you, because noon in Texas is inhumane.
Oh yeah.
to to someone in India. So in those circumstances, I have not gone live at noon.
Mhm.
Although I did have one gal come in. Oh, she might have been Malaysia. Maybe that's why I said that at first. And she said, I think it's important to do new things every
Mhm.
day. And she goes, this is the first time that I have put on makeup after midnight. And she decided she
All right.
wanted to go live, and it was International Women's Day. In
Oh
fact,
wow.
it had finished for her. The
Yeah.
rest of us were trying to catch up. And so she really wanted, and one of my gals was in India. So same situation, very odd time to be perky and on screen. And
Yeah.
she wanted to share the colors and the rituals that I've never experienced that were celebrating women internationally
Fair enough.
in
Yeah.
India. So I
Yeah.
loved it that they did break with that tradition. But I did attend a conference where the evening before was
Mhm.
great. I was interviewing my husband, was
Mhm.
in charge of the camera. I was holding the microphones. Excuse
Mhm.
me again, please.
Oh, that's fine.
And I was interviewing the conference goers and the
Mhm.
conference speakers. During
Okay.
the night, we were in a beautiful wooded area, and during the night, a storm came through and something went out for the area. And although it was daylight and big windows in the room that was already set
Mhm.
up with vendor tables, etc., having to do with case management, these would be um, nurses or social workers,
Mhm.
and you're familiar with this,
Yeah.
who assist in the transition from a hospital stay to what is
Yeah.
next best for that person so they don't end up right back in the hospital again and possibly
True.
worse.
Yeah.
Should,
Yeah. That's true.
should they go to rehab? Should they stay for a while with relatives? Should there be home health? Probably yes. Just getting all that settled. So that good transition, not because they're not happy to see you again, but because it's just not necessary. It just was avoidable
Yeah.
to have you
That's true.
return so quickly
Yeah.
if you're just not getting the progress that you need.
Mhm.
Well, the storm took all of that out, and I thought that they can still talk. We're not that big of a group, even though the microphones don't work. Yes, it's getting a little bit cold because the heater isn't on. It was
Mhm.
late, almost winter.
All right. Yeah.
And I thought, but they can still do it. And they were like, can't be done. We have offered food. The food can't have it, yeah, or can't be provided.
Yeah.
Um, so they were just refunding people and getting them on their way. And I thought,
Mm.
as we left, we could see the crews. There were probably 7 vehicles that were ready to start putting up power lines again
Yeah.
along the road. And I thought,
Oh wow.
should we have waited another hour so that all this power would have returned?
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you for letting me go off on that rabbit trail. And I would
Oh,
love
that's
to get
fine.
back to you. What part of Texas are you speaking from right now?
I'm in San Marcos, just south of Austin.
Oh,
Yeah, about an hour's away from Austin, like with traffic. So it's good. Yeah.
does that put you close to Houston or closer to Houston, or is it off in
Um,
another direction?
no, we're kind of in the middle between Austin and San Antonio. So
Oh,
yeah,
okay. So that would be the spot to be in if those are 2 helpful spots for shopping, for visiting family, or
yeah,
maybe for you in
yeah,
your position. So,
yeah,
Nadim,
yeah,
please tell us all about you. Anything that you want, all
yeah.
the good that you are bringing to people who may be challenged by typically more prevalent challenges in aging, possibly that would be helpful for a caregiver to have, in the palm of their hand or in the back of their mind or in a book or whatever it is, all that you provide. And then just generally for enriched longevity, because at any age, an adult who maybe is totally, I'll say, living solo and incurs some sort of injury, condition, medication, something went wrong ways, and they're recovering, or they would like to continue to be part of life, even though they've been diagnosed with maybe a chronic condition. Regardless of a diagnosis or how it's affecting, you still want access and intrigue and fascination and feeding your curiosity, and also contributing and letting people know, what you bring to the table, and not have to go, I can't go into a place. So go right ahead, Nadine.
Oh, that's so true. Well, first of all, thank you, Christine, for having me on this program.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. Second of all, I'll give a bit of a background story on myself. So I started out as an architect. That was my studies initially, and during that, one of my kind of pet peeves with the design world was when we asked our professors, well, how do I know this works? Because they'd show us examples of famous architects who made buildings that were wonderful to look at, but sometimes worked, sometimes didn't. And for us, well, how do I know if I put a design suggestion that it's going to work or not? And the usual answer, well, trust me, I'm an architect, or trust me, I'm an engineer kind of answer that we've got. And that kind of put me on the path to saying, well, there has to be a better way. So when I started looking at, well, what area do I research? So part of it was, well, I need to find a way to kind of test out environments that we live in without having to go through the trouble of building them, putting people in them, and then trying to figure out, well, are they happy or are they miserable? Which sometimes happens. There was a famous building designed by Le Corbusier, who's considered one of the fathers of modern architecture. And looking at it as a designer, it's a beautiful residential building, but when they started looking at the mental health of the inhabitants, depression and suicidal thoughts were through the roof at the time. And I thought, well, there has to be a kind of a safer way than to try and, trial and error, which is, unfortunately, it's kind of, it happens in the construction world. So that kind of got me to the world of computer science and virtual reality, where I started using those techniques to test out these environments. And then through that, you start understanding how the mind works and what types of lighting have different effects on the users. And by then I was in the UK, and then I moved to Canada, and we did a joint project on hospital design for dementia, for people with dementia. And what we noticed is, and it wasn't just me, it was like a group of medical professionals, medical researchers, and me at the time being a postdoc, so a youngling kind of researcher. And we noticed that when you design a hospital, you usually look at, well, how do I get the doctor or the nurse from point A to point B as quickly as possible so they could service more patients? And we realized that, well, hospitals aren't usually designed with a person living with dementia in mind, uh, traditionally. And that's problematic because from the info we know is, if you're above 65, which is the way science looks as the cutoff age for considering a person as an elderly person,
Right.
or not so elderly. If you go to a hospital with an injury, if you're above 65, you're likely to pick up another injury in the hospital. And if
Statistically true. They're not planning on it,
they're not
but
planning,
it's
yeah,
statistically
yeah,
people over 65 are
yeah,
going to maybe forget they're not supposed to be getting up without help, or
exactly, yeah, like a,
experiencing the confusion, hospital
oh yeah,
delirium or
yeah,
something.
yeah, and if a person is living with dementia or Alzheimer's, then uh, that likelihood is 3 times more likely. And
Yeah.
I tell my students and in my talks, like, this is the worst type of buy one get one free you could ever hope for. And unfortunately, it leads to a kind of a revolving door situation where by the time you've fixed one thing, there's another thing, and it translates to a long-term stay in a hospital, sometimes permanent. And
Yeah.
and that kind of got me thinking, well, we really need to start looking at a hospital from the point of view of not only the professionals who work there, but also the people who are going to be using these places, whether it's a person with dementia, whether it's a person with another mental health challenge, and such, because they see the world differently.
Yes.
So in the same way, when we put on, sunglasses, and if they're the type that I buy, which is kind of the $10 one that I find at the optometrist, it's
Yeah.
like it would be the middle of the day and it's still a little dark. So I have to kind of like, all right, it's not really dark. I don't have to put on my headlights on when I'm driving or such. So in a similar way, we kind of have to be able to see the world from their point of view, because the more I kind of went through that rabbit hole, the more things I found out that, well, a regular sign that we usually see at eye level isn't very helpful for a person with dementia, for instance, because they look at a downward degree. So at a certain point, that sign is invisible, and that's something that it's not common knowledge unless you've went through unless you've had a relative or a loved one, or the person themselves are going through it. They're like, oh, and it's an easy fix usually. Just pull it down by 1 foot. That'll make all the difference in the world.
Yes.
And
It
yeah,
seems so simple, and yet
yeah,
it is not a person who is advancing into any type of dementia that is making the design, but there are plenty of people, and some of them have been on my previous broadcasts,
mm,
that are just well suited for making comments where everyone's just like,
yeah, and
didn't
yeah,
thank you, because the creativity, you have to, wow, how did you do that? How did you get the right information?
We went through a lot of literature, and we're still going through it. Luckily, dementia is one of the most documented mental health challenges in literature. So we kind of I kind of say, because I work with my wife, she's a medical doctor, so we work together.
Well, that makes sense.
As a tag team of sorts. And when we look at literature, it's dementia and autism kind of take the lion's share of all of the research out there. And we kind of say, well, if you've got, stress, depression, like post-traumatic stress or schizophrenia, like the amount of research out there, relatively speaking, is very, very little. Let alone other challenges that are less common, let's say. But there are the other challenge, I think, from a design point of view, is that you talk to students about dementia and they'll say, well, I'll follow the requirements of the Americans with Disabilities Act. And those requirements within design, you have to have them to have your design built. But those are the bare minimum, and they barely cover physical limitations. And they don't even touch on mental ones. And you talk to a student, like a second year design student or a third year design student, and they're dreaming of designing the next great hotel or shopping center or, glamorous kind of locations. And you tell them, well, hey, an assisted living home where you have to think about things like, okay, you need to make sure that the furniture is resistant to soiling, and or that if a person sits up in their bed, they could see the toilet right away, so they could make it in time. And
not glitzy glammy, doesn't have sequins all over it. It isn't the next best until one of those people has a loved one. Exactly. And then they're just like, I'm all about it. Show me. Nadim, there were two things that you mentioned, and one was simply the word residential. And so when someone moves into, maybe of their own choosing, they move into independent living, senior community, etc. They are residents, community members. A lot of times people are moved in.
That's true.
That is, somebody else made that selection. And so those residents, either way, they're staying there. And like you said, hospital stays can be a long time. It is forever for a person who only lives in the moment. This is I am here forever. I have been here, or I still am completely not recognizing this place, even if they've been there what would typically be long enough. So, and then you also mentioned down the rabbit hole. And so people, when they think for just a moment, they think of Alice in Wonderland. I think my husband has a big poster of Alice in Wonderland in his office. He is producing this right now.
Yeah.
And going down the rabbit's hole, was that the first or the second? It seems like there were two different novels about Alice's adventures, but then there's this rabbit with a timepiece.
That's true. Yeah.
And does she follow him? Boy, it's got to be my husband that answers this one, because he's the reader rememberer. And so timepiece, the amount of time that a person's going to spend there, is it too short for them to acclimate? Is it too too long and it just doesn't feel like home and the depression is coming on?
Yeah.
Or is there just really, I did serve a person through several years and watched everything changed from the way that I was greeted to how much
Yeah.
sleeping was being done. Definitely went through the era of being frantic to find familiar, to find a familiar place, to find a familiar face.
Yeah.
Just frantic because everything was so unfamiliar. Here's my question to you. I hope the answer is yes. In San Antonio, I have been told, I have not seen it, but that there is a park that is designed, it's about 7 acres. It was designed by a gentleman in Oregon, which is where I used to live, that it is a therapy park or garden. It is for veterans or people who have come back to the US out of the military. Their body, their mind has changed. So hi, Russ Hedge. I see that somebody just popped up in here and he's got his smiley face out there already. I popped into his show earlier today. Is any of this ringing a bell, kind of a therapy park or a place for people to get used to walking differently?
There are, and the nice thing is, like the corridor between San Antonio and Austin is becoming one of those like more like an aging studies hub in the
Oh,
entirety of the U.S. and the like the target is for it to be the hub for aging studies in the world. So that's a nice thing to know.
wow. So that
Yeah.
same designer has also created, because I saw a presentation online that he gave, has also created dementia therapy parks and described very carefully how we don't have any corners
That's
because
true.
that person can walk to a corner
Yeah.
and feel like they are barriered, because
That's,
similar to having a stroke, that other side just doesn't exist. The
yeah.
option is not there. Problem solving
Oh, yeah.
is
It's a
difficult
little, yeah.
because everything's
It's a little
around you.
challenging in a sense. And one of the things when we're designing corridors in an assisted living home or community is we try to do the corridors to be circular. So
Yes.
um, one of the behaviors that happens with dementia is that the person likes to wander and walk around quite a bit.
Yes.
And what you want to happen is for them to be able to walk as much as they want, but not end up much further away from where they started. So you do the circular paths. Another thing is you camouflage the exits to to the place because if they see a door, they want to open that door and go through. And of course, there's a balancing act to do between the fire regulation safety requirement
Right.
and the camouflaging of it. And going back to the signage is that we put the exit sign on top of the door, so it's for all intents and purposes invisible for the person who's living with dementia, but it's clear enough for anyone who's working there. And
Yes.
one of the reasons for that is luckily here in San Marcos, like the weather, hot as it is, it's to some extent bearable, but you worry about the person getting dehydrated, for instance, if they open up a
Sure.
door and wander outside. But in places where I've lived and worked, for instance, in Alberta, Canada, we get minus 50 or 60-degree winters, and it's quite a dangerous undertaking to to get stuck on the outside of a building at night sometimes.
Right.
You hear things happening, like in the 8 years I've been there, I've heard that incident happen a couple of times, and it's heartbreaking. And it happens to it happened in a senior living home where the person got stuck out, and it ended badly. And the other one, it happened with a young kid who decided to go for a walk out of their parents' place, and they didn't notice. So at the time, my kids were young, and like the minute I heard that bit of news on the radio, I was down at Home Depot kind of buying locks and placing them high enough so they couldn't open it. But it highlights these issues, and I wanted to circle back to a couple of things. When you mentioned that sometimes people are moved because they fell at home, and their loved ones feel that it's dangerous for them to live on their own. And one of the challenges with mental health is if you go through a big life event, it could aggravate it could aggravate a mental health problem. So it could worsen whatever the person is living with, or it could trigger the start of a mental health challenge. And those life events, they're categorized in medicine as death of a loved one or death of someone in the family, divorce, or moving homes. And if a person is living with dementia and they have to move home, it's on one point it's necessary because we want them to be safe, but on the other hand, this could worsen or accelerate their decline, and that is in itself. And it's one of the solutions is to make the new place they're moving to as familiar as possible. So you see that with things that they'll take pictures, pieces of furniture from their own home to wherever they end up living. The other thing is they do these memory boxes beside the entrance to their room or inside their rooms as well, and that will have selected items from different points of their lives, because it's one of the newer theories, and it's developed by a colleague here at Texas State University, is that when the person goes through dementia, they're not going in a linear fashion. They're kind of almost on a bungee rope and kind of traveling back in time, getting in a place, and then going back to their current time. So one of the things is we avoid mirrors in the home of a person who's living with dementia, because they might look at the mirror and see their reflection and figure, oh, but I'm 13. Who's this old person staring back at me?
Right.
Yeah. So that's another challenge as well, when it comes to designing these environments for a person who's living there. And these challenges are they're true across the board. I know people who live with different mental health. I hesitate to say conditions, but or challenges really, and sometimes it's kind of, well, you want to clean up the space so they don't end up tripping, or so it's from a hygiene point of view, but because of their mental health challenge, if you touch their stuff, um, they get aggravated, like they get upset, and so you it's a difficult thing to explain
Yeah.
to a person, and it's getting better in a sense that a lot of like I see the younger generation, and they are very open about mental health, and that gives me a lot of hope, because a huge part of it is to be able
Good.
to talk about it openly. Um, but at the same time, like with the older generation, and it depends on which part of the world you lived in, and like the background, the culture of a person. For instance, I grew up in the Middle East in the 80s and 90s, and you could speak about anything, but not mental health. you could, yeah,
Yes.
you could tell a person that you lost an arm or a leg, and that's fine, but you won't even go. You won't even say I'm stressed or I'm slightly depressed. That's a huge no-no in that part of the world.
So stigma. One of my previous guests, I want to say Nathan Brown. I think he has a letter before. First name that he just goes by the first initial, maybe M. Nathan Brown. And he created a documentary about the African American community, and when it's dementia, how that's just not a natural part of talking about it. I'm seeing these symptoms. It's you take care, and so there's an inequity that
True.
is
Yeah.
on every side of it. So if I'm the person experiencing it, I don't talk about this change that I see going on. The person who's watching it says, we just take care of you. And then the people who can provide information that will help the caregiving people will help the person who is maybe into mild cognitive difficulties. And there would be maybe 3 things that would mitigate, would shorten or lower the severity. That's not part of what is being offered. So on all sides of it, the inequity is a lack of acceptance, information. The stigmas aren't even talked about. You don't even say. You don't talk about. We don't. We tend not to do that in our culture. It's like I didn't even know I had a culture until I went to a very different culture, and then thought I didn't know that was a thing.
And oftentimes I've seen it in different enough settings to know that what's particularly challenging about mental health is you don't see this like the symptoms right away. Like they're harder to discern unless you know what you're looking for. So we often say, well, if I have acne, you could kind of take one look and kind of notice that. Or if I have a broken arm, you could see my arm in a cast, and I'll get some understanding or sympathy from whoever's there. If I have schizophrenia, for instance, and I'm chatting with an imaginary person right next to me, which is a severe symptom, you would think like the the usual person would kind of look
Sure.
oddly at them and maybe cross the road to the other side.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to kind of to understand it and to have sympathy for the person. And sometimes
Very
um, sometimes there's a certain level of shame associated with it.
sure.
So that's also problematic. But I love what you said about equity and sometimes access to the services as well, because
Mhm.
uh, like we see this when you talk about frontier medicine. So communities who live in isolated spots, whether here or whether, for instance, if you live in North Canada, Saskatchewan, and all of these places, they're difficult to get to. And in some villages, you get the doctor would go to the village for say 1 day in a month or 2 days a month, and and that creates an issue of well, what happens if I have a medical emergency and
Mhm.
in the middle of the week and the doctor is like 10 days away. So that creates an issue of, well, how do I get to how do I get medical assistance? And sometimes it's,
Mm.
well, can I afford medical assistance? Because
Yeah.
that's also another thing. Uh, I'll kind of go into the design side of things. Not a
Sure.
lot of designers out there are specialized um, to deal with dementia-friendly design, for instance, and that means that, well, there's a limitation of time, how much time you can access them, and a limitation of money as well, because
Mm.
you phone someone up and say, well, can you come and look at my home? And like the bill might be a limitation when you tell them, well, okay, this is like the going rate, and uh, you'll be you're expecting to pay hundreds if not thousands of dollars to have access to such to those things. And in some cases the person would say, oh well, that's a bit much, like. So that was another thing that kind of pushed me towards thinking, well, everyone that I know nowadays, even even my 11-year-old has a phone on them.
Right.
So what if we can give them access to a level of that information through an
Mm.
app, for instance? And that's why we're developing an app and a company around it called Neuronest, where you snap a few pictures and you feed it to the app, and you tell them, well, uh, I'm dealing with dementia, and here's the things I'm looking for, and it'll analyze the pictures of the house or the room or the space you're living in, and it'll come up with saying, well, the things in red you really need to change because those are dangerous for the person there. The things in yellow
Mm.
is beneficial for you to change, but like it's somewhere in the middle. The things in green are good, and we're developing the app in collaboration with the Central of Data Management here at Texas State University, and we do have a prototype up and running, and we're testing it out in different scenarios and settings. But the idea is to have that access. So one, it's convenient. Two, it's financially easier to access that app. You don't have to shell out as
Yeah.
much. And the third thing is, um, if you're ashamed or if you're nervous of talking about this with an act with a person, then this is kind of a first step. It's an anonymized step to get some care.
Yes.
Because it's one of those things like even though I'm in this space and I research this and I do this, I would feel a bit nervous about going to a psychologist or a psychiatric and telling them, well, I'm kind of dealing with a bit of depression, like I'm feeling depressed. So it's a big first step to take. So having something on the phone that provides accurate info might be something that, okay, they'll get a good level of suggestions, and that will possibly improve their life enough for them to maybe hopefully take the next step, or having a better quality of life, instead of like the usual scenario of decline to a point that you need a big intervention.
Thoughts are flying through my mind hearing about this. And as much as I want to jump on, what's the tech? Or tell me some of the things that would be marked in red. What you said was it gives an individual the opportunity to deal with something that is absolutely frightening, that is socially isolating. You will always become isolated when you are unable to behave the way you used to, that people are, like you said, that crossover and walk past. And here you are putting dementia and mental health in the same spot. It reminds me of Jean Hartnett, the trauma-informed care. I know that she used to do that. I don't know if she's off in a different direction now, but I know that that was something that she has talked about at conferences. People ask her to come speak. So it makes me think of Jean Hartnett. Mental health in your neighborhood, Ronka Komalafe. Is that a familiar name?
A bit, yeah.
Okay, Austin. And I got to meet her in person about a year and a half ago, in April of 2024. But she was also one of my guests, and she was putting together groups of people who were panels speaking, online. And so you just think, one or the other is enough. Why does it have to come together? Well, when that is the case, there are solutions and there are ways of handling it. You don't have to throw up your hands and go, let's just get that medicine and bring them to a point of half stupor, or just put them away somewhere that only deals with mental health or only deals with dementia. And we'll go back and forth. When they get kicked out of one place, then we'll take them to the other. It's like, we're talking about a person like you or myself who has lived life, continues to have value. And yet, if I have a broken arm and terrible allergies, no one says, well, you either get the bone set or you take allergy medicine. We can't do both. That's just too much. It's like there are remedies. There are big, quick remedies in a situation. There are a way of helping the caring people to deal better with it. I want to make sure we talk about your book before we go, because there is a group called Alz Authors, ALZ. Are you already familiar with them?
No.
So
Okay.
ALZ authors,
All right.
three women who wrote some memoirs
Mm,
about their loved one, has become hundreds upon hundreds of authors, documentary independent filmmakers, people who write how, grandma's
mm,
acting weird, how to talk with children about dementia, or someone else over here is going, these are the 17 things that
mm.
saved my sanity when I wanted to provide a loving um,
Yeah.
response to what,
Yeah.
just all these different things. And I wonder if yours would have already a category, a person who has mobility issues, that would be like, oh, do you have bars? Are
Mm,
you
yeah.
are you making sure that the floor is clear so they don't trip over something? A
Yeah.
person who um, has Alzheimer's, what's the best, lighting, etc.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because there were three things. You could
Mhm,
start a mental illness path. You
mhm.
could amplify a mental illness, or
Yeah.
you could, I would say, stir up a mental illness that has
Mm,
been under control, but now
mm.
everything's different because the body is older. There's
Um,
new, possibly drug interactions, etc.
exactly.
Is it all being addressed? So
Yeah.
also authors, I recommend that you submit to them and see if they would put your book, you and your wife,
Yeah.
having to do with, and I'm looking for it again, it's coming,
Yeah.
architectural psychopathology, and
Yeah.
even the idea of any type of
Mhm.
dementia. Alzheimer's, I believe,
Yeah.
is one type,
Mhm.
together with your just mental well-being, let
Yeah.
alone
No, definitely. Yeah.
recognized symptomatic,
Yeah.
condition.
Definitely. And I think that's one of the things we wanted to do with the book is when we started looking at the literature is we found a lot of things to do with dementia, but we noticed that we thought, well, what about other mental health challenges? And we
Mm.
noticed that there's it's very sparse for certain mental health challenges, and that's why we made the book to kind of say, well, for instance, uh, a long corridor that is wavy and nice to walk through and doesn't have very clear exits might work for a person with dementia because they'd love to wander, and that would be ideal for them. And we'll have handlebars and rest areas for them to utilize when they're walking. But if I get someone with post traumatic stress and put them in a corridor like that, that would trigger an episode for them because they can't see a clear exit. So to them, that's a dangerous environment. And um,
Oh, how well
yeah,
put. And
yeah,
just to understand that this might be what to get to the point where you can physically scan an area as a caring person and go,
exactly.
this is full of triggers that other people see
Yeah,
as helpful.
yeah,
You said something, muro something, that you're developing to be able to take a
yeah,
picture of a room and
yeah,
have things show up. We see this even on commercials where it's like
exactly.
the gentleman is looking for someone's particular kind of makeup, and he's like, all
Yeah.
I see are a bunch of tubes. I don't know what I'm going, and it's
She
like, this
plays the
is
makeup, right? Yeah.
so you're saying, click the room, and it's like the lighting is
It's
uh,
bottom. Yeah,
it's blue and it should be yellow, it's yellow and it should be
exactly.
blue.
What,
That
yeah,
darkened corner
that's
is going to represent, you
right.
know, uh
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, like one of the things that we know, for instance, if you have a black rug on the ground, um, that's really
Oh,
problematic for a person with dementia because the way they see it, that's a big hole in the
oh,
ground, and they try
oh
to walk around
goodness.
it or kind of shimmy around it, and that increases their risk of falling, for instance.
Yes.
Or in some cases, if the for whatever reason, the color beige and shades of light brown are very common in homes that are being sold today. So
Yes.
if you have a chair that's a chair and the wall are very similar in color and not contrasting enough,
Hmm.
then that person might not, they might miss the chair completely because at a certain point they see things in 2D. And that's problematic. Another thing we noticed
Wow.
in assisted care homes is um, they'd have the cutlery and the silverware on the table, and they're a similar color to the table. So the person living there will not be able to pick up where their food is, and that leads to them not eating their food. So
My goodness. Something that
yeah,
looked aesthetically pleasing to everyone else. We
exactly.
need to actually I need to say goodbye to you before
Yeah,
the 60-minute mark.
fair enough.
So
Yeah.
I just want to go through quickly off to the side here in the
Mm,
comments. I get to see that you are at Texas State University, that you're
mm,
an educator there.
uh-huh,
And on Amazon, we can find architectural psychopathology.
mhm,
And then I see
mhm.
MAISALJUNAID. Is that your wife?
That's my wife. So yeah.
Oh,
So
I guessed right. I wanted to make
yeah.
sure that I highlighted that. We're talking about things not blending in too
Yeah.
much. How
Mm.
is her name pronounced, please?
First name is Mace,
Mace
and the last name is Al Junaidi.
Aljanady, and
Mhm.
she is a medical doctor.
Yes. I
Mm.
keep bugging her with all kinds of medical questions.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah. Well, she knew what she was getting into. Everyone's, oh, you're a doctor. Can you look at a thing I've got?
Yeah.
Um, so Dr. Mohammed Nadim Adi ADI,
Mhm.
and it happens to have 517-9283. Um,
That's
it,
my LinkedIn profile. So if anyone wants to reach out and connect and collaborate, we need all the help we can get. Really, it's a collaborative world, and
yes.
we can't do the work we're doing without um, reaching out and meeting wonderful people like yourself, for instance, and understanding what's going on here and there.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm just going to have to say goodbye to you, people who
Um,
will see this in replay. Scott has been putting these up on the screen. Thank you to my producer so that people can pause and get the right information so that they can get a hold of you and that they can watch and see how your app that you are developing right now there in the hub of the world, that is the plan, the hub for mental health, one part of which is challenged by a form of dementia, or one just aggravates the other. And so this is going to be a spot where people are going to go, did you know that that used to be like a big stigma? Like people would go untreated, or others would say, we don't even know what to do anymore. There's no answers. And there were
yeah,
answers. So
yeah.
thank you so much for being right there on the leading edge. Thank you so much,
Well,
Nadim.
thank you so much, Christine. It was wonderful talking to you.
Oh, I'm so grateful. Bye bye.